Oh! Oh!
Happy birthday to you.
One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. We all know that whales eat fish and krill, and some people, certain politicians in Japan for instance, have argued that killing whales is good for human beings, as it boosts the food available for us to eat. And so you would think. But as the great whales declined, so did the numbers of fish and krill. It seems counterintuitive. Surely their numbers would rise as their major predators disappeared. But it now turns out that whales not only eat these animals, they also keep them alive. In fact, they help to sustain the entire living system of the ocean. Whales feed at depth in waters that are often pitch dark, and then they return to the surface, to the photic zone, where there's enough light for photosynthesis to happen. There they release what biologists call fecal plumes, vast outpourings of poo, poonamis. These plumes are rich in iron and nitrogen, nutrients which are often very scarce in the surface waters. And these nutrients fertilize the plant plankton that lives in the only place where plants can survive, the photic zone. Fertilizing the surface waters isn't the only thing the whales do. By plunging up and down through the water column, they also keep kicking the plankton back up into the photic zone, giving it more time to reproduce before it sinks into the abyss. Even today, though whale populations have been greatly reduced, the vertical mixing of water caused by movements of animals up and down through the column of the oceans is astonishingly roughly the same as the amount of mixing caused by all the world's wind and waves and tides. More plant plankton means more animal plankton, on which the larger creatures then feed. In other words, more whales means more fish and krill. But the story doesn't end here, because plant plankton not only feeds the animals of the sea, it also absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. When eventually it sinks to the ocean floor, it takes this carbon out of circulation down to a place where it remains for thousands of years. The more whales there are, the more plankton there is. The more plankton there is, the more carbon is drawn out of the air. When whales were at their historical populations, before great numbers of them were killed, it seems that they might have been responsible for removing tens of millions of tons of carbon from the atmosphere every year. Whales change the climate. The return of the great whales, if they're allowed to recover, could be seen as a benign form of geoengineering. It could undo some of the damage we've done, both to the living systems of the sea and to the atmosphere.
reason I chose to place this as the #1 entry is because it's a much less extreme way to wind down the list, and also because most people who eat oysters don't even realize that they were alive at the time. To be fair, it's often difficult to tell. Oysters are generally served live because they deteriorate much faster than most other animals when dead. We're probably all familiar with the concept of yin and yang, which in this case refers to dead and alive fish. It is pretty similar to the last dish with one major difference. While ikizukuri is gutted, chopped up, and served alive, yin-yang is completely deep-fried, except for the still attached head. It is served with sweet and sour sauce, with the fish still completely alive, and the head still moving. Also a type of sashimi, ikizukuri means prepared alive, and is a fish dish. Generally, as with lobster, there is a large tank in the restaurant where patrons can go up and choose the fish they want to eat. That alone is objectionable enough for many people. Ikizukuri goes a lot farther than lobster in the cruelty department. This one is relatively famous, as the video of it being made caused quite a stir last summer. For this dish, a frog is kept in the kitchen until somebody orders the frog sashimi, at which point it is taken out and sliced open on a cold platter. The sashimi bits are taken off, and then the rest of the frog is simmered to make a soup. The cheese is brought to a stage that some consider to be decomposition. Larvae of the cheese fly Piophilicaceae are brought to the cheese to help break down its fat. They eat through the cheese, making it soften, and seep a liquid known as lagrima teardrop. While some people remove the maggots before consumption, many people consume the cheese maggots and all. When doing so, people are advised to cover their eyes. Noma, based primarily in Copenhagen, although it has recently become a pop-up restaurant across the globe, has ranked as the best restaurant in the world for 3 years now, so it's not all that surprising to find that they have some innovative ideas. Salad. They serve a salad crawling with ants, which are chilled so that they move slower, and which are supposed to taste like lemongrass. Drunken shrimp is similar to the last entry, but with a few differences. Firstly, it comes from China, not Japan, and is not always served live, but when it is always served in a bolo fbaijiu, a drink with about 40 to 60% alcohol content. Another main difference is the size of the portions. This recipe involves full-grown shrimp rather than infants. Adoraibi is a type of sashimi that contains a baby shrimp. The shrimp has its shell removed, and sometimes its head as well. These can be deep-fried and served alongside the rest of the shrimp, which is still moving its legs and antennae while being eaten. The shrimp can be dipped in the alcoholic drink sake to intoxicate it and make it easier to eat. It only dies, finally, when being chewed. Adoraibi is quite expensive to order in a restaurant, because to serve the shrimp alive, it must be prepared quickly and skillfully. Going into the sea to collect your own sea urchins and eating them straight away has become a popular practice in Italy, where they call themoricci dimer. Since the edible portho is on the inside of the sea urchin, there is a special tool to open them up, though it can also be done with the scissors. They can be eaten with a spoon, although many people prefer to lick them out with their tongues. Sanekji is a dish served in Korea, and probably the most well-known item on this list through videos that have circulated online. usually seasoned with sesame seeds and sesame oil. The main component of sanakji is nakji, which is a small octopus. The tentacles are usually cut from the live octopus and brought straight out to the customer, although sometimes it is served whole.
Well, here's an amazing story I came across while I was traveling in Borneo. A young forest ranger named Digman went missing in the jungle one day. A search party trying to find Digman captured a huge python snake. It was over 50 feet long and looked like it had eaten something very large. The snake was cut open and there were human remains inside, but it wasn't Digman. It was a security guard that was missing from a nearby palm oil plantation. If you want to read the rest of this amazing story, stop by my blog at billschannel.com by clicking on the link in the description below.
Sickest thing I've ever seen.
Look at the other one's now it's moving.
That is.
They communicated, they touched each other. Now they're communicating.
It looks like it's breathing. Wow.
My heart's really racing. But you know, pup adder like this, even with the guts and skin on, you can eat them straight like this. But it's even better cooked. So I'm gonna make a classic bush oven.
好了，请我们现场的10位裁判来到统分区，我们呢要进行下一步的分数的核对。
Mon ikke ejeren af bilen her bag mig næste gang overvejer i... Ej, shit. Okay.
Washington Square Park and Pulitzer Fountain to watch as people
Thank you very much, Zach. So, now we don't have any announcement. What we missed, there was a story we were supposed to air. The Jeff